Hello guys, welcome to my channel. So today we'll be talking about team conflict management, basically how to manage and resolve conflicts in the workplace and what have you. Majorly in teams, organizations where you have people from different tasks and niches work together. Now, what is a conflict? A conflict basically does not have to involve physical fights, wars, or throwing blows at each other. So it's just a clash of interests, clash of opinion, and probably different principles between people in two or more people in the family, society at large, or just the basic work setting. And you'll be surprised at how much damage a simple conflict could cause. From a simple clash, it could go on to affect the level of production in a work environment. Types of conflict that can occur in a work environment between team members. First, we have the task-based conflict. This type of conflict that works where we have people from different niches having to come together to produce a product or achieve an end goal at work. What usually leads to this kind of conflict is when someone did not complete their part of the task and it goes on to affect another member's ability to finish their own part on time. Like let's say for instance, a software development company. We have UI UX designers who have to like work together to come up with a prototype or wireframe of what the expected result is supposed to be. The front-end developer can only work when the UI UX designer has done their part. If the UI UX designer fails to deliver at the expected time to enable the front-end developer start their work on time, it would affect the rate of production or the ability of the front-end developer to finish their own part of the task at work. Now, if this goes on to the back-end development area and what have you, the production goal for that organization or for that particular product will not be met, which could lead to clash between each team. The front end developer blaming the UI UX designer, the back end developer blaming the front end developer. So we have personality clash, which usually involves teammates with different personality types and preferences. Definitely no two people are alike. But in a work environment, we're also supposed to come together and work together. And we have clash, personality clash between people. This difference might seem like a normal thing, but then there are some set of people who can't work with some other set of people, probably because of an attribute that they have that they dislike or something they do that they don't like at all. This usually causes clashes among teammates, especially when they have to work together to achieve a common goal or to come together to brainstorm ideas. Thirdly, another type of team conflict is work style conflict. Although we've talked about the personality clash, the work style conflict usually differs in the way team members prefer to accomplish their tasks. Some team members are the type who get started on tasks earlier and get it done. Then we have the late minute rush people who only work when there is this rush of adrenaline that has to do with deadline coming up. That's when they are able to work as fast and productive as they want. If you bring these two different set of people now to work together on a particular task where they have to devote the right amount of time at the exact same time, you agree with me that there will be a kind of clash between them because one person is not used to submitting tasks earlier or starting getting started with tasks earlier, while the other person is not used to getting started with tasks at a later date closer to the deadline time. Now, team conflict management. In every organization, we can't do without team conflict here and there. Several types, not limited to the three mentioned here. And so there is a need for someone to act as a mediator, usually someone in a leadership position, to be able to bring the level of conflict and rows within the team down to a level of understanding where each party can actually come to understanding. Some of the team conflict management techniques that we have can be put under the umbrella of these three terms: empathy, collaboration, and compromise. Now, empathy itself has to do with showing feelings for another person, like trying to understand them, trying to understand things from their viewpoint. And this is a very, very important attribute for someone who will be acting as a mediator for team conflict in particular. Because as discussed earlier, one of the major consequences of conflict within a team is delay of the end product or mistake and errors at the end of a project, which is not meant to be so, especially with a software, with a company that deals with, let's say, like software or products that should be delivered at particular time. Now, as a mediator, you are meant to like emphasize areas of agreement rather than disagreement. When you work on the areas of disagreement, it will seem like you are actually adding fuel to the conflict, like you're actually supporting one side or just putting the blame on them. Fine, two or more parties are involved in a conflict, but you should try to see things from each of them's viewpoints. Like the main reason why conflict arises is because one person believes they are right, and another party also believes that they are also right. When mediating, just emphasize on the areas of agreement rather than the disagreement heavily. You don't have to point fingers at anyone or make accusations or be like, okay, you are at fault and you're at fault. Now the next stage after understanding, coming to terms with them is collaboration. Try to incorporate multiple viewpoints and insights from different perspectives. Like, okay, so this is what you thought happened. What if this could have done this? What if this could have happened? Or okay, yeah, Mr. This is the reason why you disagree with her, right? You know it could have also happened this way, and this is what this person might have thought. This was what could have happened without actually taking a stand or trying to be in support of one party. Be on the same level with both parties involved in the conflict, with all parties involved in the conflict. Just try to look at the situation or the cause of the conflict from multiple viewpoints and then provide your own insights from a totally different perspective than what caused the conflict. The last stage I'm discussing about is compromise. Try to recommend solution that will bring some degree of satisfaction to all involved parties. Try not to leave any party disgruntled or dissatisfied, or worse, even angrier than they came to meet you or than you came in to mediate. Try to recommend solutions that will actually satisfy and be in favor of all parties involved in the conflict. As a mediator, your own personal emotions or um personal suggestions should not come in the way of the cause of the conflict so as not to escalate it. This could actually cause worse problems since it is a team in the workplace, a work environment, not your personal issue or where your personal preference has to come into place. Your end goal in mediation is to ensure that both parties are satisfied and are actually in acceptance of whatever solution you recommend to them without escalating the major reason of their conflict or causing some kind of growth between all parties involved. Now we'll be tackling an example scenario, which is like poor communication that resulted in a mistake. Now we have a case scenario that will be reading out. Anne is an IT support officer at Croc Microfinance Bank. She just got back from a 3-month leave, and while she was away, the interim IT support officer submitted a report to the system administrator about unauthorized debit on a certain Mr. George Floyd's account. Upon her return, Anne received the notice from the system administrator instructing the IT support officer. Note that he did not say Anne. He just forwarded this letter or notice to the IT support officer to forward a refund request form for Mr. George to the finance department as the fault came from the bank. And not knowing about any George Floyd's case, just searched for active users on the organization's domain and sent a reimbursement form for Mr. George Will. The finance department now hereby acts on this, thereby crediting the wrong Mr. George. That is the credited Mr. George Will instead of Mr. George Floyd that was initially reported an issue unauthorized debit on his bank account. Now, the poor communication that occurred here has to do with the system administrator and the IT support officer. And the mistake that occurred was the finance department funding a totally different person than they expected, like who's actually affected. Acting as the mediator, we'll discuss about how to handle such situation. Now, let's look at it from the viewpoint of Anne and the viewpoint of the system administrator. before proffering solutions. We'll be putting into place the three conflict management techniques as explained earlier. The system administrator just got a report from the IT support office, not knowing who in particular was there or who made the reports. And they acted on it after investigation, found out that the fault came from the bank, which made him also forward notice to the IT support department, instructing them or whosoever is there to forward a reimbursement request form to the finance department. Now, we know it is a microfinance bank, so it is possible it is a large organization where each staff do not know each other or each employee do not know each other personally. It is highly probable that the system administrator who carried out the investigation and instructed the IT support officer to forward a refund request form did not even know that the IT support officer, Anne, was on a 3-month leave. All he got was a report from the IT support office and he acted on it. Let's look at it from the viewpoint of Anne now. Anne, being away for 3 months, upon her own return, had no idea that there was any issue with a certain Mr. George Floyd's account. So, since the system administrator did not specify with a surname and just stated Mr. George, our first search results came turned Mr. George Will's name up, and so she just acted and forwarded that name to the finance department. Both parties believe they did right, and it was a kind of miscommunication. Like, okay, let's say the system administrator now had mentioned Mr. George Floyd in particular, then okay, fine. Anne would have known that this is the pattern, certain Mr. George Floyd. And if the system administrator had been aware of the fact that Anne was on a 3-month leave and it was just an interim IT support officer that submitted the report, then it would have properly briefed her up and given her an update that okay, so a particular person, Mr. George Floyd, reported unauthorized debit on his bank account, and this is the reason why he's instructing her to forward the reimbursement request form for him to the I to the finance department. Now, compromise, the third team conflict management technique that we talk about, trying to recommend solution that will bring some degree of satisfaction to all involved parties. Now, seeing that there was a way for the bank to actually carry out an unauthorized debit on a user's account, this should be possible on the wrong user sent the reimbursement. That is Mr. George Will. So the best option would be to go to the finance department and calmly explain what the issues are while following standard organization protocol. Then reverse the money sent to Mr. George Will while confirming all details that matches the actual affected user, Mr. George Floyd, and crediting his own account. Now, something that can be put in place to prevent something like this in the future is bringing our staff up to date and ensuring proper communication. Like the way Anne received the notice, and she was not so sure of which Mr. George was being talked about. She could have sent a follow-up email or another request form to the system administrator to confirm all details or even check through the database right in front of her to know if there were previous logs of reports from any similar user with the same first name or last name, like Mr. George, and try to trace out whatever info has been sent to and from the IT support office. With a mediator that calmly explains the need for all this, there will be no reason for a particular conflict between the system administrator or the IT support officer and the finance department, since it is not their fault. They just acted on the request gotten from the IT support office. No one is to blame here, as it is just like normal office protocol, and no one could have guessed that certain parties or certain names were the cause for miscommunication. So, with that, we have come to the end of team conflict management. Thank you for listening.